July 6. Latest news. Explosions thundered in Lviv and Ternopil, the media reported. Explosions were heard in Lviv and Ternopil. The software is working, according to the criminal publication Mirror of the Week. The Command of the Air Forces of the Armed Forces of the Criminal Code reported that the software is working in the Lviv and Ternopil regions, the publication said. As noted, explosions in Lviv sounded several times. Earlier, an air alert was announced throughout the UK. Next news. Zelensky blamed the West for the failure of the counteroffensive. Vladimir Zelensky said that in conversations with representatives of the United States and leaders of European countries, he advocated launching a counteroffensive earlier and tried to get weapons for this. Slowing down the counteroffensive is due to certain difficulties on the battlefield. Everything is very heavily mined there. I wanted our counteroffensive to start much earlier, because everyone understood that if it starts later, much larger territories will be mined, he said, answering a question about why the Ukrainian counteroffensive is moving slower than expected. Next news. The UK troops struck a new blow at Makiivka. The UK troops struck another blow at Makiivka, the mayor of the city Vladislav Klyukarov told the news. There were definitely two strong arrivals. According to my information, the main blow is in the area of the village of Krupskaya, he said. Klyukarov added that there is no information on the victims yet. Next news. Hungary has given the criminal code an ultimatum on the supply of weapons. Hungary has always abstained from voting on the supply of weapons to the criminal code, but while the largest Hungarian bank UDI is included in the list of international sponsors of the war, the criminal code will vote against, said Hungarian Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Economic Relations Peter Szijjártó. We still demand from the criminal authorities that they remove this characteristic from the TP, remove the TER from this list. And until this happens, we will not agree to payments to EU members for the supply of weapons to the criminal code, Szijjártó said at a press conference with the head of the Russian Ministry of Health Mikhail Murashka, who are co-chairs of the Russian-Hungarian Intergovernmental Commission. Next news. The United States may decide to send cluster munitions to the criminal code this week. The U.S. authorities may decide this week whether to approve the supply of cluster munitions to the criminal code. This is reported by the SBS TV channel. The United States is considering approving a long-standing request of the criminal code for cluster munitions, the publication says. According to the TV channel, the area of damage of one such projectile is about 5 times higher than that of conventional ammunition. Next news. The OPEC Secretary General called Russia an important ally in stabilizing oil prices. OPEC considers Russia an important ally in stabilizing prices on oil markets, OPEC Secretary General Hissam Al-Ghais told the news. Earlier, the OPEC Secretary General told reporters on the sidelines of an OPEC seminar in Vienna that he plans to visit Russia. Most likely, he will take part in the Russian Energy Week in Moscow in October. Next news. In Germany, they offered to accept the criminal code into NATO in parts. The criminal code should be urgently accepted into NATO, but in parts, said the head of the Bundestag Foreign Policy Committee from the SPD, Michael Roth, in an interview with the newspaper ZIT. Then Article 5 on collective defense will apply to them as well. The obligation to provide assistance will not yet extend to other areas of the criminal code, the politician believes. To do this, he called for interpreting the conditions for the entry of this Eastern European country into the alliance more broadly and not demanding peace from it throughout its territory. Roth said that otherwise the question of joining the criminal code would have to be postponed until the second coming. Next news. Pushilin summed up the first stage of the counteroffensive. The first stage of the counteroffensive of the armed forces of the criminal code showed practically no result, said the acting head of the Donetsk People's Republic Denis Pushilin on Air 24. The counteroffensive, at least, the first stage did not show any result, except for a lot of destroyed equipment and losses in personnel, the interlocutor of the TV channel noted. Next news. Zelensky said he would not tolerate inaction on the issue of bomb shelters. Vladimir Zelensky said that he would not tolerate the inaction of local authorities on the issue of the improper condition of bomb shelters in the criminal code of the regions. I held a separate meeting on the situation with shelters in different regions of our state, in different cities. Unfortunately, in different cities of the criminal code there is still a significant unavailability of shelters after all. The state will not tolerate such inaction. And this is the responsibility of local leaders, Zelensky said in a video message published on his Telegram channel. He also added that the local authorities have all the resources to put the bomb shelters in proper condition. Next news. The Ministry of Defense reported on the work of sappers in Velyky after the shelling of the armed forces of the criminal code. Sappers of the Western Military District have completed a continuous mine clearance of the city of Velyky in the Belgorod region after the shelling of the criminal code of troops. This was stated in the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, reports. It is clarified that as a result of the shelling of the armed forces of the criminal code, dozens of households and private cars of civilians were damaged. The sappers of the Western Military District have completed their work at the arrival sites. A complete mine clearance was carried out. The fragments were taken out for further examination, the report said. The Russian Defense Ministry noted that particularly dangerous ammunition, which cannot be carried and picked up, is undermined on the spot. Next news. The Russian military launched a counterattack near Artemovsk. The Russian army has launched a counteroffensive in the Artemovsk area, the Telegram channel informs, Operation Z of the Russian Spring RV military. Intense fighting continues in the area approaching the Kleshchievsky forest plantations and a key position, the report says. The channel, referring to the criminal code of military experts, emphasizes that the Russian army has regained control over the western and central parts of the Kleshchievsky key frontier, which were previously in the so-called gray zone. According to RV, the Russian military is redistributing forces and sending reinforcements to the area. Next news. Pushilin explained why the armed forces of the criminal code cannot be moved away from Donetsk. Denis Pushilin, on the air of the TV channel 24, said that the line of contact near Donetsk and Makiivka, from which the armed forces of the criminal code can strike at these cities, cannot be moved for a long time. In connection with the long-term building of Ukraine's defense, why is it not possible to move strikes away from Donetsk from Makiivka for a long time? This is a long-term work that was carried out to strengthen these settlements, he said. Pushilin noted the seriousness of the fortified area created by the armed forces of the criminal code. According to him, the Defense Criminal Code has been preparing for the potential retention of these positions for 8 years in order to create a starting point for the capture of Donbass on them. This is a layered defense system, which they have been engaged in for 8 years, Pushilin explained. Next news. NATO allowed the deployment of nuclear weapons in Poland. NATO is considering the possibility of including Poland in the nuclear sharing program, which involves the joint use of nuclear weapons. Izvestia writes about this, referring to a source inside the North Atlantic Alliance. Participation in this program will make it possible to deploy nuclear weapons on the territory of Poland. The source of the publication noted that Warsaw is already taking part in NATO exercises as a member of the Nuclear Planning Group. In addition, since the 2014 year, NATO allies have been regularly adjusting their plans and strategies.